Hi. Well, today is going to be Dear Doctor Part 2. Because, there's just so many things we could talk about, the medical part, but this is, related with relationship from parents to doctors. And one of the things that, it's just, conversation that it came up recently, it was that, many parents, I feel that all of us struggle. Regardless if you're special needs parents or not. But of course, I'm talking about more, the children who has more medical needs. And I just feel that, when you go to the doctor and you get the diagnose, and for any human being, it's a lot to take in. You have to have to digest this whole new reality. You have to go through the whole grieving process, and I'm going to go through that later, but it's a lot to take in, and that's just the beginning of the journey. Then as you go through this journey, you're going to realize that more things can keep adding up. Not only that maybe your child is going to have more diagnoses, but also because the more you have, the more stress it goes along the way. And let me explain. So if you are a doctor and you have a parent in front of you and you're giving them a diagnose, and you know that because of that diagnose, now these parents are going to need to have a neurologist, a cardiologist, a IG doctor, maybe a physiatrist, pulmonologist. Those are the ones that I can just come up right on top of my hair. Maybe an ortho doctor as well. Those are the things that just come out right in there. But right there, I'm naming 5 or 6 doctors. And then on top of that, that most likely that child also is going to need to have therapy. So we're talking about speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, maybe aqua therapy, maybe hippotherapy, maybe music therapy, recreational therapy, any other therapy that it can be out there. Right there, I also named 5 or 6 therapies. So if you know that these parents were going from maybe one doctor, which was a pediatrician, to now these other 10 or 12 people in their life, it's a lot. And, one of the things that, it's just made me to trigger to make this video, it was because at some point we just have to be honest as a parent and say, yes, this is hard. And at some point also we have to reach out for help when it's needed. And when it comes that it's is too much stress to handle, all humans, it's not only the stress, but it's the emotional part. And I feel that for doctors, because this is Dear Doctor Part 2, if you know that parents are going through this, ask them how they're doing. Ask them if they are reaching out to a counselor, or if they need one, if they need a therapist for themselves. Because parents were focusing all our energy into our children, but also we have to take care of ourselves. And the best way to do that is that we have to be good mentally, emotionally, and physically to be able to care for another life. And one of the things that, that I mentioned to, somebody who was, starting this conversation was that it shocks me that, when you give birth, at least I feel that in many places of this world, they usually talk to the spouse, the partner, the lover, family member, whoever who's going to be close to the new mom, about postpartum depression. And, because they know that it may be hormonal, it may be stress, adjusting to this whole new reality of caring for, a life. So they stress, at least in here, they stress a lot about it. But they never do this for special needs parents. And for me, it's kind of like, it's the same thing. It's kind of like not giving birth to a baby again, but it's giving birth to a new reality in your life. And, not everyone copes the same way. So still surprised me that how, at least to us, and I know that maybe to you, no one ever asked me if, or my other half, how we were doing, if we needed help. Not, like, in a rude way, but saying just how when you are released from the hospital and they're so over, like, hey, watch out for postpartum depression signs. Well, no one asks special needs parents how you're doing after this starts. And now for me, it's kind of like doctors. If you know that when you see in this patient file that they have this amount of medications, that they have this amount of doctors and this amount of therapies, you should take a moment, and you don't have to be the child primary care, but if you're one of those doctors, take the time and ask the parents, how are you doing? Are you good? And how are you coping with this? Especially when this is new for parents, I think that can be very, very good for those parents. We have been doing these for years now, and it's not that it gets easier, but you get used to it. And for me, probably have been a lot different if somebody will have told me at the beginning, okay, well, you're going to have this. Maybe we suggest to, have a counselor or a therapist, something for us to give us tools how to manage this, manage stress, all these things that no one tells you, but we all know about it. And that's what I feel that we have to speak about these things. And this is exactly what I'm making this video. So, doctors, look out for your patients, and not only for your patients, but for your patients' parents, caregivers, because as hard as it is on the patient, it's also as hard for those that are caring for them. So I just feel that this is something that it should be done worldwide. Mental health is something so important, and I feel that the same stress that they put out, for, even think about it, people who was never in the special needs world, and they have an accident, something that it changed their life in a blink of an eye. They are provided therapies to cope with this. Well, parents should have the same, not because they need it, even though, yes, I guarantee you probably everyone needs it at some point. I feel that the same should be provided, the same approach should be provided for these parents that went from thinking that their life was going to be just like everyone else to now, oh, well, our journey is completely different, because the emotional toll is the same as if you just have, for example, a car accident and now you cannot walk. Well, the type of trauma and adjusting is the same. Of course, at different levels, but it's the adjustment that is the same. Is the human adjustment to a new reality, to learn that the world may not be prepared for everything, or it's not going to be as easy how you thought that it was going to be. And that's what I'm asking you, doctor, to think about that if you see that there's a lot of doctors, therapies, or medications in someone's life, just ask not only the person, if they're an adult, ask them directly, but also as that caregiver, how are you doing? How are you dealing with stress? I think that would be the best way how at least I would like to be presented that. So if it's needed, doctors having your office, different lines where parents can reach out either by phone or different referrals, or just to say, hey, there's someone in there that they can help you. So that's what I wanted to say. Just think about that we all struggle at some point, and some may express it and others may not, but it's good that we learn how to cope with this. So that's it for today. Take care.